Hello guys, welcome to the YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to see write a program to consider two numbers and display the highest number and the lowest number. But the main thing is the user has to input. So in our previous video, we have input something manually, but now in today's video, we are going to get a user input. So let's see. First, we have to start with HDL. First, we have to assign two numbers, then only we can get two inputs. So let's get the inputs first. Integer, I'm going to get the input as an integer. Let's say number 1 and then integer number 2. This is how it works. Okay, now we have assigned the integer value as a number 1 and number 2. So now we have to give a command to the user that you have to, now you can enter your number. So that is, we can easily say the C out. And then enter number 1. And after that, you have to assign this integer number 1 and you have to see in constructing this number 1. And then you have to semicolon and you have to do the same things for number 2. So I'll just copy and paste enter number 2. Okay, now this part is over. Now we are in the main part that we have to put a if condition here. If, then you have to put a bracket. If now assume that number 1 is greater than number 2, then what is the greatest number? Number 1. So if this was false, then number 2 is the greatest one. So number 1 greater than number 2. In this case, number 1 is greater and the number 2 is the greatest number and the number 2 is yes. So we are going to print that C here. The highest number is, and now we want this number 1 that there's user's input. Imagine that the user has input 5. Now for this one, sorry, number 1 is 5 and the number 2 is, so in this case number 1 is 5. So number 1 is 5, it is greater, the highest number is number 5. We have to print that number 5 is the greatest number. So that is how it's going to be work. So we have to, after this semicolon, after this commas, we have put another CO command that we have to print this number 1. So that is how it's here. Okay. Now we have to print another command. So we need this one. We have to put in the functions that it's going to be work like an enter, which is called endl. So it is over. What if the number 1 is not greater than number 2, which means this is 5 and this is 4. If this one is the number 2 is greater than number 1, so in this case we have to print number 2 is the greatest one. But here we have entered this number 5 as a greater number, the highest number, and the 4 is the lowest number. So first we have printed that the highest number is number 1. So next we have to print the lowest number is number 2. Am I right? Okay. If these two conditions are false, which means the number 1 is not greater than number 2, then we have to put a new part as else. We don't need to input a command because we have already assumed the numbers here, so we don't need to assume them here. Just copy this. Because I have getting out two outputs because we need the highest number and the lowest number. That is why I'm getting two outputs. The highest number is, now if the number 1 is not greater than number 2, then the highest number is number 2 and the lowest number is number 1. Then we have to put a return, sorry, to 0. Then we have to close this. In here, if the number 1 is not greater than number 2, which means the number 1 is 3 and the number 2 is 4, you have to imagine that the user has input these values. So number 1 is not greater than number 2. So in this case, the which one is the greatest number? Number 2 is the greatest number. The highest number is number 2. The lowest number is number 1. This is how it works. I have saved that file as a usl.cpp, so now I'm going to cmd in double case. So g++. You have to enter the name as usl.cpp. Then you have to press enter. And one thing, we don't need to put else condition, this brackets, because if you put these two brackets, then you will get a error message, because we are not going to print any statement inside this. So we don't need to enter any brackets or something. Then save this and just go to the cmd and then just press. Then we have to press enter here. Enter number one. We are going to enter number 30 for number one. And for the number two, I'm going to enter 56. The highest number is 56. The lowest number is 30. This is how it works. And thank you for watching. Subscribe.